pretty much effective. Okay. Complex reaction time. When the blue light goes on, you press Q. When the red light goes on, you press R. When the green light goes on, hit the space bar. When you hear the buzzer, press with your foot. Oh, sure. That's going to fucking happen. Tell me again. Right? If you can't encode it in the first place, of course you can't fucking do the task. Right? And what a surprise you can't do this. Again, this is where the driving literature goes nuts. Recall, okay, not recognition memory, but recall. All right? I'm going to read you 15 words, and then you're going to write them down after 15 minutes. Nah. That ain't happening. Right? And then intrusions in recognition memory. What happens really? Your hippocampus is kind of turned off. So telling relevant things from irrelevant things is hard. So I give you those 15 words, right? Then I give you a list of 50 words and I say, which one of these were on those original 15? And they all fucking sound familiar. Because it's all connected, man. Right? So what's an intrusion? An intrusion is when you say, this was on there when it really wasn't on there. It's like this memory fucking intruded into your brain. Right? And there are classic things where we mess this up all the time. Right? If I give you 15 words and they're bed, blanket, cover, pillow, nighttime, right? And then later on I say, hey, was sleep on the list? You're like, fucking A, man. Sleep was on that list, right? But it wasn't really, right? That's a classic memory intrusion. Right? The problem is when you smoke pot, everything was on the list. There's 50 words, you know there were only 15, but all 50 of them, you're like, fuck yeah, that. If it wasn't that one, it was something like it. Barbie doll, yeah, I think that was on there. I like her. Alright. Chronic effects. Now this is the thing. I got to bring folks in the lab who've smoked a ton of pot, but they can't be high at the time, or I'm not really testing chronic effects. Right. Where do these go awry? It's hard to find those fuckers and get them to come to the lab. Right. And in fact, some of the best studies in Costa Rica, they go out to them. The problem is, in the United States, if I call you up on the phone and say, hey, are you a stoner? Can I come to your house? Like, yeah, if you bring it back. So we don't have enough of a sample sometimes to detect things. We don't have enough power. The sampling is biased. Only the folks who have got their shit together enough to actually make it to the lab and who are willing to do this kind of stuff end up in these studies. The test difficulty is something I really want to keep in mind. All right? So a couple of years ago, this giant, hey, marijuana has no impact on memory study came out. I got a bunch of media calls, right? And I'm like, well, what was the test? Who's the president? What day is it? Like, dude, my mom is demented and she can fucking answer those. All right? If the test isn't difficult enough, if there's no difference, I can't be that impressed. Oh, the stoner knows what day it is. That's super. The stoner remembers Obama's president. Oh, that's great. Okay. I just can't get that excited. Okay. And the other thing is type 1 error. And I don't want to bring this up and it's going to give anybody PTSD symptoms from stats. Right? But type 1 error is really all about, if I give out 7,000 fucking memory tests to people who smoke pot chronically and people who haven't, believe me, a couple of them are going to be different, just by chance. All right? But what happens is these fuckers like give 11 tests that can be scored 16 different ways. They find the 6 that are significantly different and report that. All right? So then of course it looks bad because they fished around when really all these things were by chance. You follow these? Okay, you don't want to give anybody trauma-related symptoms from research methods. Okay. The other thing that they don't often keep in mind is pre-morbid differences. All right? Before you even smoked pot, were you already stupid? All right? And I get this all the time with the Smoking pot leads to high school dropout. Smoking pot leads to lower high school grades. All right? So they get the kids who smoked pot and who didn't, and sure enough, the high school seniors who smoked pot had lower grades than the ones who didn't. Then they look at their grades in 4th grade. I don't care how big a stoner you are, you were not fucking smoking pot in 4th grade. Okay? And guess what? Their grades were lower back then. Okay? So it's not that smoking pot makes your grades low, it's that people with low grades think, what the fuck, I might as well smoke pot. Polydrug use. Now everybody knows if you smoke pot, you would never do any other drugs. Especially not, oh, all of them. Right? So we can't really attribute in the human data all these effects to cannabis because it might be something else. Okay? Especially with intellectual functioning, alcohol is the thing to keep in mind. Right? Now, it would be great if we had animal literature on this, but it's hard to get the animals to take the IQ test. Finally, intoxication during testing. Some of the best work has been done by Harrison Pope at Harvard. They come to the hospital and spend the night in the hospital before the testing day to make sure they don't smoke pot, and some motherfuckers still try to smoke pot in the hospital. With that in mind, I have to ask, is the statistical significance meaningful? Right? You got a list of 15 words. Marijuana smokers, they can only remember 14, and the non-smokers remember 14 and a half. Does that really matter? You might forget half a word. Well, what do we see? Gross IQ, no. Okay? And this, this Jamaica, Costa Rica, here in the United States, folks who start using cannabis as adults and smoke pot all the time have IQs the same as everybody else. Fast response to complicated tasks, here's where they fuck up. Okay, that complex reaction time, kick your foot when you hear the green bell. Synesthesia, right? They're not good at this, okay? Here's the deal. There's going to be 5-second and 7-second tones, and some are high and some are low. So the second you realize that it's going to be a 7-second tone, you hit the space bar. And people who get high every single day, even when they're not high, they're like, fuck, dude, really? Okay. And they try their best, but they can't do it. Where else do you see changes in these evoked responses? In their brain waves. That same tasks. Is it a relevant tone or an irrelevant tone? Is it 5 seconds and high-pitched, or is it the target one, 7 seconds and low-pitched? Right? The problem is their brain waves don't do well. They have a hard time separating one from the other. And it's not that they mess it up, it's that their brain actually goes, is that it? Oh, is that the one? Right? This is one of the serious chronic effects of cannabis use. I need a giant EEG machine to detect it, but it's really serious. Okay. You got this?
So, is this people who smoked a lot when they were younger and then had to stop as adults, or is that not supposed to?
Current users.
Have you been in any studies with where that's controlled, where it's okay, you smoked all through your teenage years and stuff, how do you act as an adult?
So Nadia Solowich down in Australia has some of those data. When you quit, one of the deviant brainwave things gets better, and the other one stays fucked up. I think it's something that was probably fucked up before you ever smoked any pot. Separate issue.